The Cowboys got the victory on Thursday Night Football against the Titans, but wasn't as convincing as you'd like against the third-string quarterback who just signed eight days ago in Josh Dobbs. Is Dak Prescott ready for the Cowboys in the playoffs? We'll talk about that. Also, what are the Raiders going to do? Of course, you know Chris Carter and your boy Q. Q covers the Raiders daily for Locked On Raiders and the Raiders Radio Network. We're going to ask him, and of course, our pick six of all the Week 17 games. Chris Carter, your boy Q, the Friday edition of Locked On NFL. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On NFL, your daily NFL podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome to the Friday edition of the Locked On NFL podcast. I'm Chris Carter. He's your boy Q. We're of Locked On Steelers and Locked On Raiders, and it's Week 17. Lots of huge games going on. As always, this show is brought to you by Betonline. Betonline has you covered all season long with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. Betonline, where the game starts. You can find the Locked On NFL podcast on Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Odyssey, and YouTube. Like this video if you saw it on YouTube. Subscribe to this YouTube channel to get all of the daily Monday through Friday episodes of this show and all the different shows that we produce here for Locked On NFL. Q, how you doing on this Friday?
Man, I'm good. Real good. Nothing going on over here in Raiderland, huh? Nothing like end of the season, end of the year, calendar year, headlining news that is going on. So, yeah, been really busy, man, but it's good to be with you on a Friday.
Same here, same here. I am actually glad that you didn't have to freeze it out at the Steelers-Raiders game on Christmas Eve. I had to do it. I was comfy up in the booth, but, man, getting there and getting out, whew, that was some cold stuff. It's warmed up, though, here in Pittsburgh. But let's talk about where things have been very interesting with the Dallas Cowboys because they're still in the hunt to kind of set themselves up with a strong position in the playoffs. Of course, officially the playoffs are not set yet because the Eagles, they're a game ahead of the Cowboys right now. Or they were 2 games ahead of the Cowboys, excuse me. But if they lose this weekend, it will come down to the final week of the season, and we don't know Jalen Hurts' status. The Cowboys needed to beat the Titans. They did. But as we all saw on Thursday Night Football, the Titans, they didn't have Ryan Tannehill, and for some reason, they benched Malik Willis, and they put in former Pittsburgh Steeler Josh Dobbs, a guy who signed with the team just 8 days before the game. He came in. Cowboys still won 27-13, but Josh Dobbs threw a touchdown, and Dak Prescott threw 2 more interceptions, and it continues the question that a lot of people have been asking about Dak Prescott. What is going on with his turnovers? This is his third in his last 4 games that he's had multiple interceptions thrown in a game, and it's also the 4th game of his last 6 that he's had multiple interceptions thrown. He's also thrown an interception, at least 1 or more interceptions in now 6 straight contests. Q, is this a red alert for the Cowboys when they will make the playoffs? Because they're in the playoffs, right, but they got to win in the playoffs with the talent they have on this team.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, kind of a red flag, and it's been for a few weeks now. I mean, you just ran off the stats, right? I mean, it's just when you're in the playoffs, you've got to do everything right. And when you get to this point of the year, when you're in late December, early January, you want to be peaking. And the Cowboys have the makeup. Their roster is built to win. They have a defense. They have a strong run game. They have a quarterback that's able, but the quarterback that's able is turning the ball over too much. Now, Thursday night, of course, one of his interceptions, the very first one, was just his tight end let the ball bounce off of him. It was like a volleyball play right to, the Titans. But the second one, Byard he picks it. He just picks it clean. He reads the route and he jumps it and he gets interception. They score points right before halftime. You just can't have those kind of mistakes. And I don't know what it is. I don't know if Dak's trying to force it. I don't really have put my finger on exactly what the problem is, but I do know there's a problem, and that'll get you past the Tennessee Titans. They're struggling. Again, like you mentioned, Josh Dobbs in at quarterback instead of Malik Willis. Willis just isn't ready to be the starting quarterback yet. Tannehill, I know he's out for the season. Doesn't seem like a very good quarterback anyway, in my opinion, but that's a whole nother conversation. And Dobbs has got more, at least, he's a little bit more of a veteran. And even though he signed 8 days before, hell, we saw Baker Mayfield beat the Raiders on Thursday Night Football after signing 2 days ahead of time. So I guess that was the rationale going into that one. But ultimately, man, I don't think the Cowboys make a deep run in the playoffs if Dak Prescott does not protect the ball better than he's doing. So, yeah, if I'm a Cowboy fan or if I'm just an NFL fan thinking that, hey, I'm going to play some money on the Cowboys because I think that they have the goods to get it done, I'd be right. But I'd also be very, very worried because he's turning the ball over too much.
If that happens, the Cowboys finish with 12, maybe 13 wins if they win one more next week, and they fall short early in the playoffs again. Is there a move that you make if you're the Cowboys? Do you go and try to switch something up because they've assembled a nucleus of players that are talented? They got, multiple running backs. They got CeeDee Lamb. They've got Dak. They've got offensive line. They got a defense that is making plays. You got Micah Parsons, Lawrence, all the players you got. And if you're still not able to put it together, you got to wonder if Jerry Jones or somebody tries to make a move to change things up. Is there some big shakeup that you think happens this offseason if the Cowboys do fall short?
No, I don't think so. I mean, they just gave Dak his contract extension, so I think he's going to be there for the long haul. But I do think that there's a problem, with whatever he's doing. I'm not a big fan of Kellen Moore as the offensive coordinator. I don't like his play calling. I think that he forces too many passes already. I think that they should be using those horses in the backfield and Zeke and Tony Pollard. And obviously they have more guys than even that, as Tony Pollard didn't even play, and they still have a really good run game, right? So I think that they should really lean on that heavily. They don't because of Kellen Moore, but turnovers aren't even a Kellen Moore problem. Turnovers are a Dak Prescott problem. And then when his receivers don't help him out, like his tight end did on Thursday night. But that's something that you got to. I don't know if you sit the guy down and tell him stop thinking. I don't know. I don't know what he's trying to prove. It feels like he's trying to show that he could be as good as like a Patrick Mahomes or one of the elite quarterbacks in the league. And Dak, you don't have to be. All you have to do is go out there and be who you are. The one thing I liked about Dak Prescott when he came into the league, when he was drafted as a fourth-round compensatory pick, is there was no expectations for Dak. Everyone thought, this guy's just going to end up being a backup. And he just went out there and he played with a clear mind and just went out there and slung the ball around the yard, managed the ball, didn't turn the ball over, handed the ball off to Zeke when he was supposed to. Now he gets a contract extension. It's many years later, and all of a sudden he thinks he's got to be the savior. He ain't got to be the savior. Just play your game, and that's a good recipe for success. But for some reason, man, he's trying to do, in my opinion, trying to do too much.
Sometimes that is the case. I mean, I think that there are certain quarterbacks who I think are very good at playing that style of football. I think Kirk Cousins, when the Vikings are at their best, that's when he's not trying to do too much. He's just taking what's there. I think Jalen Hurts, he's another quarterback that he creates on his own a bit, but he's very good at saying, you know what, you're leaving this open for me because we have all these different skills around on the offense. I'll take that. He's not trying to thread the needle.
Maybe he's trying to prove that he's the best quarterback in the division and not Jalen Hurts. I don't know. It feels like it though.
And I think there might be merit to that because I think there sometimes is pressure on guys, especially when they get a big paycheck, to say, hey, I am that guy. But people I think players need to put their egos aside sometimes in that situation. You don't have to be Patrick Mahomes, who throws no look behind the back passes 50 yards downfield through triple coverage and all that. That's not what defines you as a great quarterback. What defines is winning. And I know people say wins aren't a quarterback stat, but if you end up winning at the end of the year, people are going to want to keep you around. You're going to get chances to get paid, and you're going to experience success. I mean, even Jimmy Garoppolo, who's not, in my opinion, one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL, but he knows how to manage an NFL game. He knows how to not lose the game for his team and play at the pace that his team is asking him for, and that's why he's kept the job all these years. I think that Dak Prescott, I'm not saying
want to get rid of him, he still sticks around.
Right, exactly. That's great, and that's the crazy part. But like for Dak Prescott, I'm not saying that he's Jimmy Garoppolo, but I'm saying that, hey, lean on your run game. Don't try to make the risk of those. Trust this Cowboys team that I think is very talented. And if he was able to play protection football, but hold on to the ball, possess the football, and let the rest of his team win games more, and then in the sparing moments when it is on him, make those plays. I think that puts the Cowboys at a much better chance to play their style of football and beat some of the better teams in the NFL. We'll see if they're able to do that in the coming weeks.
Yeah, he just has to be comfortable in his own skin, man. He has to relax and just go out there and play his game, right? And, I mean, Kellen Moore has to do a better job, in my opinion, of setting him up for success, but also Dak has to know, when to hold it and when to fold it, right? I mean, he's got to be able to – again, I mean, these games right now are fine. They're already a playoff team. But, man, once you get into the playoffs, if this continuous habit of turning the ball over continues, you're going to be in trouble. You're going to lose games in the playoffs if you keep turning the ball over. Again, Thursday night, they played the Titans. You can get away with that. You're not going to get away with that in the playoffs, especially if you have to play a first round. You're not a number 1 seed, and most likely it's going to be Philly. All they got to do is win one more game. You're going to lose to these better teams, playoff teams that have aspirations to go deep into the playoffs if you can't protect the ball.
If the playoffs were to happen right now, and granted that's also with Dallas playing one game, they'd
Right.
be the 5 seed. So I believe that means they'd play the 4 seed. So they'd have to go on the road to play Tom Brady and the Buccaneers. I have them
probably could win that game. Probably could win that game.
They could win that game. But then let's say after that, the Vikings as the 2 seed beat up on the Washington Commanders. The Niners as a 3 seed beat up on the Giants. Then you do have to go on the road to Philly, who's coming off a bye, and probably have Jalen Hurts back at that point. Are you confident that the Cowboys win that game?
No,
I'm not so sure.
No, the next time the Eagles and the Cowboys play, if they do square up again, the Cowboys are going to take that L. If Jalen Hurts is in the game and Dak Prescott's playing like this. It's that simple. It's not even a discussion. They'll take that L if Dak is playing like this.
You heard it here. Dak's got to step it up. We'll talk more about what's going on. We got to talk about Q's Raiders because, man, what a situation that has been in Las Vegas. We'll talk about that in just a minute here on the Locked On NFL podcast. But first, we got to talk to you guys about the National Highway and Traffic Safety Administration, because I know that it's New Year's weekend. I know a lot of people want to go out and party, but we urge you to take care of yourself and try to make the smart decision if you're going out drinking and not drive while you're drunk. Sometimes you'll be going out there, you'll take 1 drink, 2 drink, 3 drinks, and that turns into 5 drinks. And then all of a sudden you're feeling a little tipsy, but you feel like, hey, I'm fine. I have my motor senses about me. I can get home. Think again. That what you think might not be a big deal turns into a big deal quickly. You can get pulled over by a police officer. Your insurance goes up. You lose your license, or you get into an accident and you total your car, or you hurt someone, hurt yourself, or kill somebody. All these things are very real possibilities of people when they drive drunk, the risks that they take on and the tragedies that it causes. So people, take heed to this warning, especially on this holiday weekend. Be sure to drive sober, or if you know you're going on drinking, make plans ahead to have rides available for you. There's Uber, there's Lyft, there's so many different options out there to protect yourself. So the National Highway Traffic and Safety Administration wants to remind you to not be one of those impaired drivers out there, because police officers are pulling them over and they're doing it to save lives. So if you're thinking to drive after a few drinks, think again, play it safe and plan ahead to get a ride. It only takes one mistake to change your life or someone else's forever. Drive sober or get pulled over. Back here on the Locked On NFL podcast, I'm Chris Carter. He's your boy Q. We're breaking things down on the Las Vegas Raiders. Q, that was we both called it last week when Franco Harris passed away. The Steelers was going to find a way to win that game
for sure.
And then, but the way they found a way to win that game, Derek Carr throwing 3 interceptions, Kenny Pickett getting the last-minute touchdown, and all of dismay. It definitely left a sour taste in my mouth. Josh Jacobs sounded very just defeated after the game, just frustrated with all the work that he's put in as the NFL's leading rusher. For that to be the continued result, and then Derek Carr gets officially benched this week. The Raiders are going to start Jarrett Stidham, and it has been chaos in your world. I can only imagine.
Yeah, it's been really busy, man. And after the Raiders lost to the Steelers, I did a podcast on Monday, and I just said straight up that it feels like they lost a game that was very winnable, and they probably parked the car permanently at the same time. And that's what it looks like it's done. And Wednesday, Josh McDaniels, the head coach, announced that they were going to start Jarrett Stidham, and they're saving themselves $40 million just in case he gets injured in one of the final 2 games. And also, they're protecting their asset that they're going to attempt to move. And if they do move him, great. But he has a no trade clause, so he could deny whatever trade they want to make. He has also said he'll never play for another team that's not the Raiders, so he could very easily walk away and go and pursue preaching or whatever he likes to do, because that's what he's passionate about, other things besides football. 31 years old. He's been in the league 9 years, made $130+ million. I think he'll be okay, right? I don't think he's going to be looking for work anytime soon or starving or anytime soon. His fridge still has food in it. So I think he'll be just fine if he chooses to walk away. But ultimately, man, he just wasn't getting it done, right? And a lot of Raider fans are pissed off because he provided stability to the organization, and he did. In 2014, when they drafted him, they had a crazy carousel of quarterbacks before him. Ever since 2003 with Rich Gannon all the way leading up to 2014, it was just a crazy carousel. He stabilized that position, but doesn't mean that he made that position better. Like, he stabilized it. He's good. But what it seems like to me, from a guy who covers the Raiders on the daily, feels like they want great. They want some success, and they want some success right now. It's like having a job that's good. It pays well, but all of a sudden you decide, you know what? I want something a little bit better. I want something that pays a little bit more. I want something that brings me a little bit more notoriety. Who doesn't do that? I think we all do that. So I think the Raiders as an organization decided, hey, we think we can do better without him. So let's go and try to do that. And so that's what their goal is now, is to upgrade that position, not take it back to where it was before Carr, but it's to upgrade. How do they do that, Chris? That's the big question.
That's a huge question. And you're doing that if you're the Raiders right now and you're saying, like, man, are you starting there? You have already sunk a lot of draft capital recently that hasn't brought success. I mean, I think I looked at over the past 6 NFL drafts, the Raiders have had 8 first-round picks.
Yep.
And 4 of them are gone. They didn't have any in 2022 with the Devontae Adams trade, but in 2021, Alex Leatherwood, he's on another team. Henry Ruggs III, Damon Arnett, 2 first-round picks in the same year, not even in the NFL anymore. You have Cleveland Farrell still there, Josh Jacobs still there, Jonathan Abram, though, gone. Colton Miller's still there, but Garyon Conley not there anymore. And then if we went back even further, you'd go Carl Joseph, who's actually been on the Steelers roster most year. But let's keep it at 2017. Yeah. This is where, and there was a lot of talk about, are the problems Derek Carr? Are the problems Josh McDaniels? I think the Raiders have to acknowledge this problem isn't just a quarterback or a head coach. It is structural right now. They need young guys in this organization that you can build around as pillars, and they need to hit on their first-round picks moving forward. Right now, they have the 9th overall pick in the NFL draft that could rise or fall based over the way these next 2 weeks play out. But you're looking at another top 10 pick. This player, if it's a quarterback, a defensive lineman, whoever it is, they have to be the pillar of whatever is coming next. Does that, in your mind, does that player need to be a quarterback? Do they go get CJ Stroud, or they trade up to go get Bryce Young or Will Levi or one of those guys?
I mean, they very well could, but I don't think that guy, even if they draft him, plays this year. And this is why. I think with the roster that's built, and I know that it's not deep because, like you said, the lack of draft capital that has actually come through, they don't have depth on the team, but they do have surface talent. They have Devontae Adams. They have Darren Waller. They have Hunter Renfrow. They have the ability to bring back Josh Jacobs. They have Colton Miller there on the offensive line. They have Max Crosby on the defensive side of the ball. They have Chandler Jones. If they want to bring him back, they still have him under contract. They have pieces to like. They do have to continue to build it, but I don't think, especially being in Las Vegas, that they can afford to go through what most would call like a rebuild. And if you go and turn it over to a young rookie, you're hoping that he's going to catch lightning in a bottle, right? I mean, rookies don't just take you to the promised land, right? I mean, there's rookies that are really good.
Kenny Pickett.
Right, exactly. Well, look, I mean, hell, the Steelers have Big Ben, right? And he was a hell of a rookie, but it's still, I mean, the thing about going start to finish to the Super Bowl.
That's the outlier.
Right, exactly. That's not going to happen on the regular, right? It just isn't. So, I mean, those kind of things don't happen. And I don't think Devontae Adams is a guy who wants to catch passes from a rookie quarterback, or he probably would have stayed in Green Bay, right? Because he thought that Jordan Love, he didn't know what was going on with Aaron Rodgers. So this is my thing. I think they have to go out and get a proven veteran that will please Devontae Adams, that'll want Josh Jacobs, or will want Josh Jacobs to stay around the organization, be able to understand what Josh McDaniels wants to do, and elevate the team. Not just stabilize the team, but elevate them. And honestly, Raider Nation hates to hear it, Chris. I honestly think it's
Don't say it. I'm
going to say it. I'm going to say it, and I believe it until it's not proven to be true. I think it's going to be Tom Brady.
No!
I really do.
Tom Brady.
Tom Brady goes to an organization that makes the janitor better. I mean,
he does, though. That's what he does.
That's what I'm saying. He elevates everybody that's around him, and the Raiders need an elevator. And I don't mean one that's going up like Nelly Furtado used to talk about back in the day. I'm talking about an elevator, someone who could elevate the whole
team
old to make them play. I don't care about being old. That's fine. So is Tom Brady. But if
you're right, you're right.
If he can help that team get where they need to be, he knows Josh McDaniels, he knows the offense, McDaniels knows him, he knows what he's capable of. If they decide to bring him in, which I do think it's going to be him, maybe Jimmy G, maybe other, right? And that's really where I'm going to leave it at, because that's all my gut feeling tells me. Then it's got to be someone that could take him to the next level. Now, the only problem I have with Jimmy G is just his injury prone. Right. And so if you have look, he didn't get traded from the 49ers because he was injured. He's not playing right now for the 49ers because he's injured. Right. I mean, it's just that's what happens with him. So I honestly think that as much as Raider Nation is going to hate it, that Tom Brady will probably be the best option as long as he's not, kind of performing like the shell of himself that he's not even been a shell of himself. He just hasn't been good, but his whole team hasn't been good. So is that Brady old and a shell of himself, or is that more of the organization? That's the big question.
Hear me out. Okay. I'm swinging big here. So this might be crazy.
Okay.
I was talking with a colleague of ours just yesterday on my crossover podcast.
Okay. I know where this is going, but go ahead.
And he was saying it doesn't sound good with the talks between a certain quarterback who's been an NFL MVP and the franchise that drafted him. If there was a chance.
And he's making $50 million a year.
Exactly. Can Lamar Jackson be a target for that? I thought that's what you knew I was going. That's what I was talking about.
I thought you were saying Aaron Rodgers.
No. I just did a crossover with Kevin Ostreicher of Locked On Ravens. But when I was doing the crossover with him, he was talking about how like Lamar's injuries concerns this year, and they haven't paid him, and there's wondering if he's holding out. If this part of this waiting and not coming back from his injury are because he knows that he can't get injured again. Otherwise, it's going to hurt his stock in this upcoming free agency period if he goes to free agency. Should the Raiders, instead of Tom Brady, I get it. He does elevate people, but he's 46, and you've seen the struggle there. But what if you went and got? I know that the Raiders have already spent a lot of capital to get Devontae Adams, but if you go and get Lamar Jackson, you see how he elevates that Raiders team. He would have Darren Waller, he would have Devontae Adams. I believe he'd still have Hunter Renfrow. You could probably get some other guys to agree. You know what? We'll play with Lamar Jackson. Would that be a viable move, or is that too big of a swing for the Raiders to pull off with where they are right now?
I just think with the draft capital that it would take to get him, I'd be asking for a lot, especially since the defense needs a lot of upgrading. The offensive line still needs upgrading. There's a lot that still needs to be done, and that's why I think Tom Brady makes more sense just as a bridge guy. And you could draft your young quarterback and let him sit behind Brady and learn, similar to what is going on in Green Bay with Aaron Rodgers and Jordan Love. You can have them sit there, and when they're ready to pass the sticks on, then cool. Maybe Devontae Adams is still playing with you. Maybe he's not. Who knows at that point? But I think Brady could carry the load for a couple years max if he's right. If he's healthy and he's back to kind of being, Tom Brady. Again, he didn't have a bad year this year. It's just the team is not good. So I don't know how much of it is, like I said, Father Time, and how much of it is the Buccaneers. So that's something that we have to pay attention to.
We'll be paying attention to it. Q will be paying attention to it. If you're a Raiders fan that wants to see how all this plays out, check out Q on Locked On Raiders, and of course his Raider Nation Radio Network that he's on there all the time, and he runs the show there. We got our pick six coming up, our top 6 games, and this is a great week for our pick six. There's a lot of very interesting games we're about to break down for you here on the Locked On NFL podcast, so don't go anywhere. But first, we got to talk to you guys about Betonline. Betonline has you covered all season long with more props, more ends, more lines, more betting stats and information than ever before. They're your number one source for all your betting stats and sports information. And it's not just the NFL as you gear up for the playoff. It's NBA games, it's NHL games, it's bowl games, it's everything you can imagine sports right at BetOnline. They also have podcasts that break things down just like we do. So go check out BetOnline right now, your continued source for all your sports betting and wagering information, from live betting to playoffs, esports, and more. Head to their website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends of the action when you visit BetOnline, where the game starts. Back here on the Friday edition of the Locked On NFL podcast, I'm Chris Carter. He's your boy Q. It's time for the Pick Six, which as always is brought to you by BetOnline, where we're going to break down our top 6 games to pick this weekend because there's a lot here as teams are gearing up for the playoffs. Let's get into a first one. New Year's Day, 1 p.m. on the East Coast. What's that? 10 a.m. on the West Coast there, Q.
Yeah, 10 a.m. on the West Coast. You're right. Yep.
Yeah, y'all ain't the best at nothing. Y'all had y'all chance to prove that when it was cold and icy in Pittsburgh, and y'all didn't do that. But anyway.
It wasn't the whole coast. It was just one team, you big
Yeah, it is the whole coast.
All right. Sounds good. Unbelievable. This guy.
Pittsburgh's more the Midwest than it is the East Coast, though.
Well, I know what time zone you're in.
Yes, you do. But anyways, Dolphins at the Patriots. Dolphins, of course, need to win this game to try to keep themselves in that playoff spot they have. But the Patriots are favored by 3 points at home here. The money line is minus 155. Patriots plus 135. Dolphins over under set at 41. Q, I don't like what's been going on with Miami. They've lost 4 straight. No. Granted, the Patriots have lost 4 straight times to the Dolphins over the past couple of years. But I think that with the Dolphins in a free fall, this is a perfect situation. The Patriots playing at home, Dolphins reeling. Teddy Bridgewater's got to start. Yeah, I think this is going to be a weird game. It's going to be close, but the Patriots pull it off at home, and I'll take the 3 points.
I think the Dolphins season is really about to come to a wrap, man. I really do. As good as they've had, as much success as they've had, with Tua out, man, and look, I don't even blame them. And I know they're going to try to rush him back there as soon as he can clear concussion protocol. They're going to probably throw him back out there again. I hope they don't. They need to shut him down for the rest of the season. They might have to shut him down permanently. I mean, when you start messing with all these concussions that he's had and all these concussion protocol types that he's having to visit, and we saw his hands. We've seen so much from Tua. Got to save this dude from himself. And I don't trust Teddy Bridgewater at all. Teddy Two Gloves don't get it done for me. So, yeah, I think the Patriots win this game. I just think that the Dolphins are on a spiral that's not going to end until the season gets wrapped up and they're eventually kicked out the playoffs.
It's kind of crazy. They had a hot start this year and have spiraled out of control, unlike last year when they had a terrible start and then they built it up and became a really strong team at the end of the last season. They might end up with a worse record than last season if they lose these last 2 games. Yeah. But let's keep it moving here. Let's go to the next game. This is an NFC South showdown that is important because the division is still up for grabs, and it could be a team with a losing record that gets it. The Panthers come into Tampa Bay. The Panthers at 6-9. The Buccaneers at 7-8. The Buccaneers are favored by 3. The money line is minus 167 bucks plus 147. Panthers only at Betonline. Can you get these odds and numbers? 40.5 is the over under here. This is a sloppy game. I see it coming down this, but Q, you talked about the fighting Matt Rules. I think it's the fighting Steve Wilks now.
It really is. It really is.
This Panthers team is going to come into Tampa Bay and they're going to cause some problems and they're going to get a win.
They're playing for their coach. They really are. I got to give Coach Wilks a lot of credit, man. He's proven that he could be an NFL head coach. I hope he gets a legit look from Carolina because, man, they could have easily just folded up, put their tail in between their legs and gone home, right? Taking their ball and gone home after Rule got fired, and they would have been fine. There would have been an excuse for it. Well, they don't have a head coach. They have an interim guy. Instead, man, all they did is grind. And, oh, by the way, they don't have Christian McCaffrey either. They traded him. So there's that, right? I mean, they're doing all this without C-Max. So I like what they're doing. They're going to be a thorn in the side of the Buccaneers, and I would not be shocked to see them win this game just because. Now, with that being said, Tom Brady and Buccaneers, they need to win. They need to win because they still have expectations. Even though the season hasn't gone very well, they need to get this dub. They need to make sure that Carolina is not the reason why. So I think that Tom Brady will find a way to get it done. But, man, Carolina does not – they don't shock me anymore because the way they're playing for Coach Wilks, and I'm really happy for him. I hope he continues to get that grind and get that real legit look to be the full-time head coach there in Carolina.
Heading to the next slate of games.
Yeah, I picked Tampa Bay in that game. I guess I didn't really specify.
No, you said you think that Tom Brady and they were going to win. No, that was clear. Gotcha. So that was our first split there. This is a very interesting game for where these two teams are, but the 7-8 Jets are at the 7-8 Seahawks. This is going to be wild because this is, we've heard all year long about the Geno Smith revenge tour, and now it's come to the place that where he started, where he got his jaw broken by a former teammate, where he was exiled eventually. The Jets, though, they've been on a free fall. They've lost 4 straight to the Vikings, the Bills, the Lions, and the Jaguars, but the Seahawks themselves, they've been on a free fall. They've lost 3 straight to the Panthers, Niners, and Chiefs. And now it's just a matter of who can get a win here. Q, I look at this matchup here, and you look at the odds and the ends on Betonline. It's a coin flip. The Jets are favored by a single point. It's there's no money line there. It's just a straight up pick 'em game. 42.5 is the over under. But I'm saying the Seahawks. I think Geno Smith's going to be extra motivated. He's talking about, they wrote him off, but he didn't write back. I think this is the ultimate didn't write back game for him. And I think that the Jets, they're going to be starting Mike White. And I think that there'll be a little bit of a spark there because, Zach Wilson hasn't worked out. But I think the Seahawks get enough done. Kenneth Walker has a big day, and they get a win at home as the Jets, I think, traveling all the way to the West Coast, I think that gives them a problem.
Well, I think the defense travels really well, and the Jets have a really good defense. So I think Geno's going to get picked off a couple times, and I think the Jets are going to win. Mike White's going to do just enough offensively. They have a good run game, so that travels well as well. And playing in Seattle is not as dangerous as it used to be, right? The Raiders went into Seattle and beat them in overtime, and really it didn't look like it was that tough of environment to play in like it used to be. The 12s used to be really a big deal. I think Geno Smith is coming back down to earth. I mentioned a long time ago, a few weeks ago, actually, we were doing this show, and I said, I think that the Seahawks are going to be a team that does not make the playoffs, and it looks like that I'm going to be right about that. I think that they're coming back down to earth, and Geno Smith is, well, still Geno Smith.
There you go. He got the Jets. I got the Seahawks. Moving right along, huge game. And if you've been paying attention to the Locked On Podcast Network, especially this channel, Locked On NFL, there have been some shots fired between these two teams. The Vikings on the road, 12-3 at the 7-8 Packers. Usually these records are flipped. The Packers have been the more dominant team for so long, especially with Aaron Rodgers. But now the cases are different. The Vikings are still hanging in there, trying to have a shot at the 1 seed if the Eagles can flop these last 2 weeks. But they're trying to secure, like, hey, we're still going to be the 2 seed if nothing else. The Packers trying to fight to stay alive as well. BetOnline has this game as the Packers being 3-point favorites. Money line is -182 Packers plus 162 Vikings with the over-under at 47.5 from BetOnline. And Q, all season long, we've been saying the Vikings are going to stop. The Vikings, they're going to fall. They're going to fall. And there's times where they faltered. But this team has found ways to win in such weird ways. And to me, there is something about that. Like, throw out the analytics. There's football. There's leadership. There's motivation behind that.
Yep.
I think that they get it done again in this game.
I think that the betonline.net line for it and letting you know that the Packers are favored in this game tells you all you should know about this game. When you look at the records, there's no way that you would think that the Packers should be favored. Them being favored tells you all you need to know. Nobody still believes in the Minnesota Vikings. And I know that there's been big beef on the network, and it's been great, between here and trash talk between the Packers and the Vikings. But I got to be Team Bukowski here. I still think the Vikings are a fraud. They barely beat the Giants. They had to kick a 61-yard field goal last week to get that W. They had to come back from 33 down against the Colts. I still don't trust them, man. And they like you said, there is something to be said about what they're doing. They're finding ways to win. You can't get mad at that. But I still don't trust it. It's just not. If I had to put my money down, which I'm not, but if I did, I wouldn't roll with Minnesota Vikings. So I'm gonna go with Green Bay and Aaron Rodgers. I trust them more. It's weird to say I trust Aaron Rodgers.
Right. It's weird to say that, but I think that's why I'm picking the Vikings. It's not because I really believe in the Vikings. I just don't believe in the Packers. If this was Vikings, Cowboys, Vikings, Eagles, Vikings, another actual top team is playing well right now.
They would lose.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Yes,
but I don't believe in the Packers right now. But there's our thirds. But we had a lot of splits this week.
And Kirk Cousins has done well against the Packers. He's won 3 in a row against the Packers. So I mean, he's doing well against them. So again, I shouldn't go against them because they find ways to win games. And like I said, you have to give them credit for that. I just don't trust them. So I'm just gonna roll against them.
I don't blame you. Moving on to Sunday Night Football. The Steelers on the road against the Baltimore Ravens. The Ravens just beat them 3 weeks ago in Acrisure Stadium, but it's looking like Lamar Jackson isn't going to play for a second time in this rivalry. The Ravens, though, on BetOnline, they are I'm looking at next week's. They're favored by 2.5 points over the Steelers. The money line is -140 Ravens, +120 Steelers. Over under set at 35. Bet the under. It's going to be just slow defensive football. Yeah. But I'll tell you this much, Q. When the Steelers lost to the Ravens, I was in that locker room, and Cam Hayward, TJ Watt, Alex, all the defenders were like, we weren't fooled. We weren't, there wasn't a concept that we weren't aware of. They kicked our butts, and we can't allow, we have to be more physical. And since then, they allowed just 21 yards on the ground to the Carolina Panthers, and then they shut down Josh Jacobs this past week, 58 yards to the Raiders total rushing. I think the Steelers come into this game. They were very close last time, but I think they find a way to get this win. If Lamar Jackson was playing, I'd pick the Ravens. But with a backup quarterback, I think the Ravens, they snuck one last time with a third string at the end of the game. I don't think the Ravens have the success running the football they did the last time. I also think Kenny Pickett doesn't get hurt, and you don't see 3 interceptions coming from the quarterback position. And I think this is a close game, but the Steelers find a way to win it to balance out the series at 1-on-1 this year.
That's an interesting one, man. I don't know how much I trust Baltimore with Tyler Huntley, at the quarterback position. And I did just see the physicality from Pittsburgh and also the pride that they're playing with. It's not just, I know their record's not what they want it to be. I know Mike Tomlin hasn't had the season. Kenny Pickett hasn't had the season that he wants, but there's something to be said about the pride that they're playing with. And, again, I just don't trust Baltimore, and their defense isn't a traditional Baltimore defense either. So I'm going to roll with you on this one, man. I've gone against you on a lot of these, but I'm going to roll with you on this one. I think the Pittsburgh Steelers find a way to get it done as well.
Now, here's the game of the week. Everyone is waiting for Monday Night Football. Bills at Bengals, 12-3 and 11-4. The Bills, both teams have been on a roll. I believe the Bills have won 6 straight here, and I believe the Bengals have won 7 straight, if I'm correct. Yes, 7 straight. Both teams have been on fire of late. Joe Burrow, Josh Allen. It's going to be a slugfest. And the crazy thing about this, Q, is that if the Bengals win, they jump into the 2 spot in the AFC race, and then it comes down to whether the Chiefs can win their last 2 games. Granted, They're playing the Broncos and the Raiders, so not exactly those are games they'll be favored in.
Yeah, for sure.
But if you're the Bengals, you have a chance to beat another juggernaut. You'll have beaten the Chiefs and the Bills and be the 2 seed in the NFL playoffs, positioning yourself very well. I like the Bengals at home right now. I like what they're selling. I like the way they're playing.
Did you hear that, Cincinnati fan? Chris Carter's about to roll with you. Wow.
Listen.
I've
rode with them before. It's just that when I rode with them before, they lost to the Jets, and I had to wear Jet stickers on my face for a show. So I've rode with this team before, but I feel like I'm rolling with them this time, and I'm believing in what they're doing because Joe Burrow, he's not just living off of Jamar Chase. If you're taking away Chase, he's finding Higgins. He's finding receivers I didn't even know were on the team. Like I was looking at, I do a fantasy show for our local NBC station here in Pittsburgh, WPXI, and I was like, who is this guy that got touchdowns from them? I don't even know. And that's what impresses me the most about Joe Burrow. I think the Bengals can mitigate what the Bills do enough offensively for Joe Burrow to hit the secondary and third options and get the dub here. It's going to be close. It's going to be down to the wire. And I think this is a game of the year game. Betonline has this as a straight up pick 'em. It's not even 1-point favorites. It's dead even. Over under is at 49.5. I'm taking the over because I think there's a shootout that goes on here, but I'm going Bengals at home. Q, who you got?
Man, I wish I had gone first because I'd have gone Cincinnati. Bengal fans know that I would have definitely led that charge, man. I'd have took you down the path to success. So yeah, I'm rolling with Cincinnati as well. I just think that they're one of the hottest teams in football. I mean, it's just that simple. And I got to give Joe Burrow a lot of credit for being able to guide the ship while Jamar Chase was out, and just being able to go through everything he's gone through. And that offensive line still isn't playing great. They're still not, protecting them like they should, but they're still finding ways to win. So they're getting hot when they should get hot. I'm rolling with Cincinnati, man. I like them, and honestly, would not be shocked if they end up making a repeat performance and head all the way to the Super Bowl and play in Arizona at the end of the year.
Well, I would not be shocked either. This team has played that well. There you have it. We had some agreement there on the night games, but we split. Q took the Packers. I took the Vikings. Q took the Jets. I took the Seahawks. Q took the Bucks. I took the Panthers. We both took the Patriots to win that one. It's going to be a fun weekend either way. Check it out. All there. Q also, you'll be at Raiders Niners, correct?
Yes, sir. Allegiant Stadium, New Year's Day. What could go wrong in Las Vegas?
what can go wrong in Las Vegas. There's a lot that'll be coming your way. We'll be here next Friday as well, covering everything, what happened in these games, and all the final playoff scenarios. Who's still alive? Who's out? We'll talk to you and give you another pick six for that weekend and show how everything's go down. But stay tuned for the Locked On NFL podcast, because there'll be a lot of breakdowns after all of these games. We'll have the Monday episode, and of course, all the other shows that come out on this channel, Peacock and Williamson. We have a ton of different programs that come out here, so check it out here. Q, thanks again for joining me for Friday edition of Locked On NFL. Find this show the same way you find Locked On Steelers and Locked On Raiders: Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Odyssey, and YouTube. If you see this video on YouTube, like the video if you enjoy it. Subscribe to this channel to get all of our daily Monday through Friday episodes, including all the bonus content we put out here. We'll be back next week. Until then, Happy New Year's, everyone. We'll see you in 2023. Whoop.